good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in and hanging in with us. We had some technical difficulties this morning. I am not mic'd, so I'm going to talk really loud, so let us know if you can hear me. Today we're going to be talking about kind of Staghorn Fern 101. I'm going to be talking about how to take care of a staghorn if you buy one already mounted. I'm also going to show you how to mount your own staghorn. There's two different ways you can do that. So we have very large old Staghorn ferns here at Rogers Gardens. By the way, I'm Sarah Smith. I'm a horticulturalist here. Sorry, I'm just jumping right into it. But we have two really nice, beautiful Staghorn ferns here at Rogers. If you've ever been here and you've missed them, come back because they're very impressive. They're really old, beautiful, established ones. And we have them down in our shade house. So they're kind of in the middle of the nursery here in the shaded areas, and they are impressive. So I actually pulled all these pups off of the large one that we have. So imagine how big it is. These are just the baby little pups off of the one we have here. Basically, all I did was I went up underneath the shield frond. So that's what this part of a staghorn is called. These fronds here, there are sterile fronds, so if you look at the bottom of it, it's just totally green. And then there are fertile fronds, so that has the spores on it. So that's what that is. A lot of times people don't know what that is. They think maybe it's rust, but it actually isn't. This is the fertile part of the frond. So those are basically the three different parts. And I just go up underneath one that has multiple pups, and I just push my hand underneath this frond part here, this shield frond, and I just slowly make my way around it and kind of loosen it until it pops off. So it feels kind of scary. Every time I do it, I'm worried I'm doing it wrong and I'm gonna break it. And I haven't yet, so knock on wood. This is what the back part looks like. So this is the back of what the whole thing looks like. And this right here is the roots. So Staghorn ferns are epiphytic plants, so they live on the trees of other plants. They don't take anything away from the plants. They just live off of all the debris that falls, all the moisture that falls from the air. They're actually fairly easy. I think people overthink them and they think they're really complicated, and once you find the sweet spot in your house, they're very easy to do. The thing that they really need is they need some sheltering from the sun, and they need a lot of humidity. That's the two keys that they need. They don't really need a lot of fertilizer, especially once you get them really established. In the beginning, I fertilize them, and we'll go over that a little bit. But they're pretty simple plants. I just use the mist setting on my end of my wand, and I just spray them down probably every 2 weeks if it's really hot and very dry out. If it's not, then I just don't even really worry about it. So it's pretty nice. The closer you are to... Oh, it looks like our microphone's working.
You have sound.
We have sound! Yay! Okay, let me put this on for you guys real quick, and then we'll get right into the different kinds of ways to mount them. We also sell, so if you're not lucky enough to have a staghorn fern that's so much better. Hi, everybody. Gosh. Okay, this is great. We also sell staghorn ferns in the pots like this. So if you've ever bought one like this and you're like, this is great, but I want it on my wall, how do I accomplish that? So I'll show you how to do that too. Yeah, but it's actually very easy. So it's funny, with staghorns, they call them elk ferns sometimes. They sometimes call these antlers, and then when we mount them, I always just think, how funny is that? We have like a mounted like deer fern on our wall instead of a deer on our wall. So yeah, it's really simple. So I actually pulled quite a few off today off of our large one. So I'm gonna pick just one that I think that looks really nice, but I'm gonna mount these other ones too as well. They grow super fast. So the big thing you want to make sure that you are staying aware of when you're ready to mount, and if you go on Etsy, you can see all kinds of really super cute ideas and Pinterest and things of different ways to mount them and different things to mount them on. People mount little baby ones in abalone shells and on really beautiful placards and even on big pieces of cut stumps. That's very cute. However, just remember these grow super fast. So you want to make sure your board is really big. So if you look at my board here, I picked a rather large board to mount on. So I want a big board because I don't want to keep remounting this over and over and over again. So this is a really nice size for something like this. I'm actually going to do it this way. This one is perfect because I can mount either way if I make sure that I'm looking at my back little hooks correctly. But I'm going to mount this way. So they grow really, really large. So you want to make sure that you do it on something pretty big. So all you really need to do is you need to have a couple of things. You need to have some wet peat moss. So we sell that here. Comes in a bag like this. You want to get it nice and wet because you're going to put that underneath it. You also want to make sure that you have some kind of string. I'm going to use a clear filament, and I'm also going to use on top of it this pretty cord. I like the way this looks. However, over time, once this gets wet and exposed to the elements, this can break down. So I want to make sure that I have something on top of it that's going to work even better and hold it in. Once it starts growing, it'll actually self-attach to this board, and then you don't really have to worry about it anymore, which is really nice. So this is just a temporary thing. You can actually kind of use just about anything. You could use rubber bands if you wanted to. So it's actually a pretty easy thing to do. I think everybody just kind of at first is like, oh, I don't know what to do, but it's really simple. So what you're going to do, I'm going to move my string here. You're going to have your wet peat moss. So I have it here in this. I'm going to just stack it up behind here. And I just want to use this, and I'm going to squeeze out a little bit of this water because I don't want it too messy. And I'm going to make a nice ball here. And I have some other decorative mosses too that you can use around the outside. So I'll show you what that looks like. I'm going to keep this one pretty clean, and for the sake of time, not get too much into that. But I just need a little bit more underneath there. So you just want to pack up underneath for this cupped part, because you can see how the back is cupped, right? You want to make sure that these little tiny roots right here are making contact with something. So a smidge bit more. And then once you have this mounted, you want to hang this up in a nice sheltered, shaded area. Dappled sun is great. These go really great. I like to hang my boards underneath my trees, and they actually sometimes will overgrow the board and just grow onto the tree, which is kind of cool. But you want to make sure that it's not getting hot direct afternoon sunlight, especially in a low humidity area. I live very coastal, so mine actually get quite a bit of sun, some of them, and they do okay. But if you're very inland and you're someplace where it's really pretty dry, you want to be careful that you're not getting it too dried out in that hot sun. You can definitely burn it. I'm going to now put the string over the shield frond right here. What'll happen is it will grow more shield fronds over time. So I'm just going to start running this underneath. So it's actually a little fidgety work at first, right? Let's go like this. I'm gonna tie it over top. But yeah, it's a really, really fun thing to do, especially we have a lot of people who come in and tell us, you know, I inherited a really large Staghorn fern and it's huge and I can't put it on my wall and I don't really know what to do with it. So breaking it down and mounting it is really kind of a really fun thing to do. And if you have multiple little pups on there, you can mount them for your friends and give them away, which is like such a great gift to have. And it's a really simple thing to do. Like our big one in our lower shade area probably has, I don't know, I want to say 150 pups on it probably. So it's pretty impressive. So I'm just making my first tie on here with my clear filament. And like I said, you can use anything, but you want to make sure whatever you're using, the first thing that you use is not gonna fall apart on you. So you want to make sure that it's not something that's gonna rot out or get exposed and have issues with that part of it. So I'm just wrapping this around. And then once you have it up on your wall, you want to make sure that you're misting it down. I've heard so many different kinds of things where people say that they use banana peels to feed these. I don't know if you've ever heard that.
interesting. If it works for you, great. I've never fed any of mine with banana peels, and they do just fine. Now, these are an epiphytic plant, so what that means is they're used to debris falling down in them from other things, bugs, insects, all kinds of things falling in there and decomposing on the top part. So that kind of makes sense to me, the idea of using a banana peel in a way, because you're letting that rot in there. I guess it also could give it some potassium. I did a little research on it to kind of figure out why that got started and who started doing that. You know, it'll break down over time. The thing I would be a little bit concerned of with that is having things like, you know, rodent problems by leaving something like that out in your yard. But like I said, if it works for you, that's great. I have a lot of people come in and tell me all the time that they water their orchids with ice cubes. And I think, okay, well, they're a tropical plant. I don't really know if that's the best idea to water your orchid with an ice cube. But however, I have so many people who've been doing it for so long and they're successful, that who am I to say to stop doing that? So I think there are a lot of tricks and things that people do, and if it works for them, that's great. But I don't necessarily think I would feed any of mine. I never have with a banana peel, so I don't really think it's totally necessary. Okay, so I'm wrapping this around, and then I'm going to use my really pretty one afterwards to make it look kind of nice. And I wanted to kind of give this one a little bit of a, almost kind of a barnyard rustic kind of feel. I found this board that was put together with multiple pieces, and I thought that looks so cute. I love it. Okay, so now I'm going to cut this off. This is kind of a thinner filament. I think I would use a stronger one next time, but this works nicely. So all I'm doing is I'm just tying it into place. And then once you put this up on the wall, I'll show you some of the fertilizers we have here that I really like, that work really well. So this is the string that I also bought because I thought this is cute. I like the way it looks. I think it'll be cute on here until, you know, the shield fronds will grow over it and eventually obscure it anyways. So it's just kind of like a jute kind of cord that I think is really pretty. And then I'm gonna give it a nice big tie there, and then I'm just gonna go around. Yeah, and basically that's all you have to do. How simple is this? I think so many people kind of get worried that it's gonna be hard, it's gonna be complicated. You could, like I said, use practically anything as a cordage over this, as long as it's not gonna decompose too quickly and fall off before it gets a chance to actually adhere to the board. But eventually it'll totally adhere to the board on its own, which is pretty cool. And that's just about it. How cool. So I would just go over this a couple more times, but there, you can already see I'm not even done, and it's already looking pretty nice. Look how great that is, right? And then any kind of shaded, dappled sun area that you could put it in will make it really, really happy. A little bit of morning direct sunlight would totally be fine, especially for coastal. If you're a little bit more inland, I would be a little bit more careful if you're in a very dry kind of area. And then you want to make sure that you're keeping it misted, and that is about it. And once you find that sweet spot in your yard, you'll find that it's pretty amazing, and you can pretty much, oh, I didn't even cut that right. You'll find that you don't really have to do much to it. I don't fertilize my old established ones anymore. I just kind of let them do their own thing. They're getting enough from all of the debris that falls into them from my trees, and that's pretty much it. Look how simple. So staghorn mounting 101. Super easy, right? Look at how great that is. So cool, right? And then eventually what'll happen is it'll grow more, and I would clean up, you know, some of these loose ends and stuff. But eventually what'll happen is it will adhere to the board totally, and then that way you don't even have to do anything. So the other one that we have, just so you can see, we sell these ones, and basically all you have to do with these is that you're gonna pop them out of the container. And I'm not going to mount this whole one on screen for you, but you pop it out of the container, you're going to put it on the board, just like we did with this one that I pulled off. You're gonna pack the surrounding area with peat moss, and then I'm gonna poke this back in. You can use the really pretty decorative mosses that we have to pack around the outside. So we sell this green sheet moss. The other one that I really like the look of, it depends on how you're mounting it. We also sell the Spanish moss too. How pretty is that? So you can pack that around the outside as well. So it's a really pretty simple thing. Then the other thing that I like to do, especially when they're young, for fertilizing, there's 2 different fertilizers that work well. The kelp and seaweed extract is the best one. I love this one, especially when they're looking a little yellowish and I feel like I need to give them a little bit of a boost. I put this in the water and then I just water it on top. So I just put this in my watering can with my sprinkle head on and I just water it on there. You can also just dilute it into a spray bottle or a pump sprayer as well. Again, I'm a lazy gardener, so I like to just throw it in my watering can, water it over the top, and that's pretty much it. And you can do that about once a month. You don't want to go overkill with that. I like this one because it's very, very mild and works really well as a foliar kind of diluted spray or water on. The other one that would work really well is the Sea Grow. This also has kelp in it. I would dilute this at half the strength of what it says on the back though. You don't want to put too much on there and run the risk of burning it. So at half the dilution with this one, and that's all. Once it's established, once you've got it going, you don't even worry about it anymore. So it's a really, really simple, easy thing to do. Taking care of staghorns, super, super easy. Remounting them, super easy. I just showed you how simple that is. And then, you know, taking the pups off of your ones that you have at home and then giving them away as gifts for your friends. What an awesome gift to get from a friend is, you know, a staghorn, especially if it's something that's been generational. There's a lot of people who have staghorns that come in and they tell me, oh, I got one that was my grandmother's, and then she gave it to my mom, and then my mom gave it to me. So the staghorn I got from my mom. So it's kind of neat to have that generational thing and give away to your other family members as well. So yeah, it's a super simple thing. Don't be afraid. It's really easy. If anybody can essentially do it, it's a super simple process, and you can mount essentially almost on anything. You just want to make sure that it's large enough so that if it overtakes that board, you're not having to redo the whole thing all over again. So that's pretty much it. So do we have any questions?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, yeah.
So the first one, someone's asking if we sell the boards here.
So we don't sell the boards here. We sell mounted Staghorn Ferns right now. We have some really, really beautiful ones here. It's what I really love. If you do any kind of looking up for the different types of boards that you can do mounting on, you can get all kinds of great inspiration. So I was really looking through that the last couple of days, and I love it when people have large ones and little ones and they kind of almost tile them on their wall, or even people who use stump pieces. So it's something you can get at any craft store. That's where I got this one. I got it at a craft store. You can make your own boards. You can even use particle board because eventually it will take over, so you don't really have to worry about it too much. But it's nice because you can mount it onto essentially anything that stands still long enough, basically. Is there any other questions?
Yes.
Yeah.
Following the lines of that question, is plywood okay, or will the glue be bad for that?
Well, so you could do it on the plywood, and we've seen them done many a times on plywood. Over time, it's totally fine. You want to stay away from things that are maybe dyed with weird dyes, because it is going to be getting wet. And so, like, let's say you had like wood with a weird green dye or something in it, or like a really fake looking kind of redwood type dye in it. As you're watering it, you're going to be getting that wood wet. It's not going to necessarily be an issue for the staghorn, but it could be an issue for your wall at home or your tree, and you can dye things. So really, they're pretty simple and will stick onto anything, painted, whatever. You just want to be careful that you got to think about the fact that you're going to get it wet, and how is that going to react with the wood or whatever you're mounting on. But other than that, plywood will work, and the glue's not going to be an issue. they're pretty hardy. You have that so stacked with the peat moss underneath too, so the roots are going into that peat moss. They're not really actually going into the board, and the fronds actually don't adhere. These shield fronds, they actually just kind of lay on top and flatten over to protect that root ball that it eventually builds up. So like these guys here, when we sell them in these pots here, they don't even have those shield ferns yet. So you're packing the moss around the whole root ball of the soil in here, and then you're covering it with something decorative on the outside just to make it easier. You're never ever going to be able to put the string over peat moss and have it stay. Once you lift it up, it's all just going to fall apart. So using a sheet moss or using a really pretty Spanish moss to kind of keep that contained is what you're trying to do there. But it's all just growing into the peat moss. It's not growing into the wood itself.
What temperature does this need to be to thrive?
To dry out, or because they really, you don't want to be in an area where you have freezing temperatures. A lot of people, if you go back east, are keeping these inside their houses and taking them out. So back and forth. I actually was hanging out with a friend recently who's from out of state, and we were talking about all the different things she has to bring back into her house. If you're watching, Sheila, hi. But we were talking about how she has to take some of the stuff into her house in the winter time because they have freezes. So these absolutely cannot handle freezes. Remember, this is a subtropical plant, and it's a very needs to be in like essentially a rainforest type area. But we aren't really in a rainforest type area, but we have so much humidity here that they stay okay. We have to do the supplemental watering to keep them happy. Some of my staghorns just get sprayed when I'm watering the rest of my garden because I have them in down low areas. But anything that I have mounted up very high, I just keep those watered down to keep them well. So they will dry out in hot, full, dry. Like if you lived in the desert or something like that, you would have to mist that down quite a lot and really try to find a humid area for that. But we can go, as far inland here, anywhere in Southern California, you could do something like this as long as you're just keeping the humidity up. Anywhere in Orange County for sure will be fine, and you'll be okay. Just make sure that you're keeping it water and you're looking for it. And you can feel when you touch these, you can actually feel the moisture on these as I'm feeling them. I can feel the moisture, and I just pulled these off of the one we have down in the shade house, which who knows the last time we watered it, probably not very recently. So they kind of are established at the point where they're sort of making it on their own. We're very humid here. We were actually misting this morning. So here at Rogers Gardens, the humidity is pretty high for most of the year.
Can you explain how to take a piece off of the big plant to start a new one?
Yeah, so I pulled these other two pieces off here this morning. I was trying to look. So basically when these are growing, and you see how this one is kind of wrapped. This was wrapped around the edge of the board that it was on. So it was already like hanging over the edge. So you have multiple pieces and they're all kind of layered on top of each other. You can see that they kind of essentially just layer like that over time. So they make the little pups. And even if you have a tiny, tiny little pup without much of a frond, you can take it off. So this was on the large one that we have mounted, and these are just hanging on their own, no string or anything over these. This is the point where they're adhering on their own. And then basically all I did was I went up and I kind of pushed, and I used my hands. I didn't even use any tools or anything. I just kind of pushed my fingers underneath the shield frond and I worked my way around it and just kind of pried it away. I held on to this part and then used my other hand and kind of pulled and pulled, and you can feel it kind of come unattached, and it always is nerve-wracking. I've done this so many times, and every time I'm like, please come off, and they always come off really nice, especially once it's this big. So I was just shoving my fingers underneath that shield frond, holding on to this part and pulling away. You don't want to handle it too much because you can see all the little fuzzy stuff that's growing on there. That'll grow back, but if you handle it too much, you're going to wipe a lot of that off, and it just kind of looks unsightly. You can just tell that it's been touched a lot, and you want to kind of stay away from that look. But that's pretty much it, and every time I do it, I'm always really successful. It always makes me super nervous. I always just use my hands. I don't use a knife or anything like that because you don't want to cut into the shield frond because then it looks kind of sad. It will grow new shield fronds, so if you break it, if you bend it, whatever, it's fine because it will grow new ones over that and protect the ones below, and slowly you'll never ever be able to tell that you even touched it. So it's actually a really pretty easy thing to do.
All right. If you have it in a balcony and it won't get any rain, hold on. This one doesn't really make sense in a sense.
So if it's in a balcony, it's not getting rain, you're definitely going to have to mist it down for sure. And if you don't have a hose out there, that's totally fine. Even if you have it in an area where it's kind of inside, that's okay too. They do need bright indirect sunlight. They can handle direct sunlight if it's morning. Hot reflective sunlight is a no-go on these guys. But even say, let's say you have it inside your house mounted on a wall and you have a good area where you have like a sunlight and really, really great windows all the way around, you're going to have to take it off the wall and maybe put it in your bathtub and get it really pretty wet. You don't have to soak it or anything like that. Just a good getting the whole thing wet, letting it dry out and putting it back up. You can do that on a patio if you have a hand sprayer and you're okay and you're not going to worry about getting your siding or your stucco wet. That's good. You can hand spray it. You just can tell too. It's very gray looking at this point, but when you start watering it down, you really can see that it turns a very bright green color, and then you know that you're good to go. So just keeping them moist is key. You don't need to over soak it. You don't have to do it every single day. When people are misting, it's so funny. I love when I'm watching a movie or a commercial and someone takes a little spray bottle and they go mist on a plant. That doesn't do anything. That always cracks me up. And so I think we all have this misconception that you just go spray, and it's done. So you want to make sure that the whole thing is pretty wet, and then you're good, and you don't have to keep doing it. If you do little tiny mists like that every single day, you'd have to do it every single day, and what a pain in the butt that would be. So just making sure the whole thing stays really moist once. Just even a full spray with a hose is totally fine, and you only need to do that once a week or so, maybe twice a week if you're in a really hot, dry area.
All right, someone came in late and missed how to plant a pup. Can you explain what to do after you separate a pup, and can I put it in a basket with moss?
Yes, absolutely. And it's funny, I have one growing in a pot. My mom put it in top of a terracotta pot and never mounted it or anything like that, and it has slowly engulfed that whole entire pot. So it's really cool because it's just this really big staghorn ball. It's pretty amazing, but it is covering over a terracotta pot, which you would never know because it's completely engulfed that. So if you're planting a pup that you've pulled off, all I did with this one is that I put my ties have already come undone, so I don't want to lift this back up. I didn't do a very good thorough tying job since we were on camera and I was trying to do it quickly. But you're taking the peat moss and you're putting it up underneath your pup, so your pup is kind of cupped like this. You're making a peat moss ball onto essentially anything. You're putting it over that peat moss ball, and then you're just tying it on, and you just want to use ties that are not going to fall apart and break over time, and then eventually it's going to adhere itself there and it will make more pups, and then you don't even really have to worry about it. If you want to do it as a start, so you don't have a big one that you can pull pups off of, and you're starting all fresh and new, and you're going to be the first generational person to pass this down family wise, you can buy them started like this, and then when they're started like this, it's just all packed in dirt here. I'll pop this out one more time. It's pretty loosey-goosey in there. You can see that's the root ball. And then what you do with that is to mount it on a board, is you stick that soil onto the board. You pack some peat moss around it, and then you use some kind of pretty decorative moss to hold it in. I've even seen people use burlap. They'll put burlap around the outside, so you can kind of use anything that's going to decompose over time. So sheet moss like this, pack it around the outside, will give you a nice, really pretty green, bright, fresh look. If you're going for something a little bit different, kind of that boho chic kind of look, or that kind of farmhouse sort of look, I love this Spanish moss. You can pack that around the outside, and then you use your twine or your jute or whatever you're going to use to wrap that onto the board. So like I said, I've seen people use burlap pockets too. You can definitely put it into just a moss basket and just let it grow. It will take over that. Like, so if you've ever seen ones that are hanging in trees that are balls, that's what those were at one point. They were sitting inside a moss basket and eventually have just engulfed the whole entire thing. So like I said, they're pretty simple. You can mount it onto anything that will keep still long enough essentially for you. So it's actually a pretty easy thing. It just patience to get it to make those pups. It'll take a while to make pups. It'll take a while for this guy to make the shield fronds. So don't worry about it. Just give it time. It will do its thing. Absolutely.
Can they grow in windy areas?
you got to be careful. And the other thing that we really have issues with is the Santa Ana winds. The Santa Ana winds are hot and they just pull the moisture out of everything. That's when I wind up watering mine weekly or even twice a week. Usually I don't even water that often with my staghorns because I'm pretty coastal, but the Santa Ana winds really can become a problem. Direct afternoon sunlight can become a problem. Hot walls. So if you have a wall and you mount it onto like a cinder block wall or a stucco wall or even white wood wall that gets a lot of afternoon sun, it's gonna fry. The real thing you want to think about is the fact that these are going to grow in like jungle type kind of areas. So you want to make sure that you're kind of recreating that to a degree at home. So wind is not something that's going to be really happy for this. So, but once you find that sweet spot, I'm telling you, it's kind of like, cool, done. I don't really even have to do anything. It's just like the big ones that we have here. We water them. We occasionally fertilize them. I don't even really fertilize my ones at home anymore. In the beginning, to get them established, I absolutely do, though.
All right, that seems to be all the questions that we have for today. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much for tuning in and staying with us a little bit late, some of our voice technicalities and microphones and things, but we appreciate you so much. It's so much fun to do this with you. I always look forward to these videos. We do these on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Usually on Tuesdays, you see the lovely Suzanne. I'm filling in for her today. I'm usually on Thursdays. It is always so much fun when you come up to us in the store and talk to us. We always talk to each other about, oh, I just met somebody who was watching the live stream this morning. I really, really appreciate you tuning in and then coming up and giving us a talk. Do we have another question?
One more.
Looks like,
Can you actually remind us what kind of plant this is again?
Oh, yeah. So we're mounting Staghorn Fern. So this is basically your Staghorn Fern 101. It's an epiphytic plant that grows up on trees or walls or boards. It's a really kind of easy plant to grow. I think there's a lot of people that look at it and think that's so weird. I don't know, but it's so easy. So these are Staghorn Ferns. This is sometimes they call them elkhorn ferns as well. There's a lot of different varieties. This is the most common variety that you see. We have a really beautiful. So this, believe it or not, will turn into something lovely like this and multiple pups. So this came off of a large established one I have. These are small, tiny little baby ones that you can also mount as well. So you can remount your own. You can mount pups off of your own at home or buy ones new. So basically a little bit of mounting instruction, care instruction. It's a very easy plant to do at home. So Staghorn Ferns, so beautiful, so easy, so exotic, so cool, so versatile. There's so many things that you can do with it. So it's really, really fun. We will be posting this on our Instagram page and our Facebook page. So if you missed the beginning, you can always rewatch the beginning and get through the beginning jitters of trying to figure out the microphone. But we will also put this on our YouTube page. If you're not already subscribed to our YouTube page, make sure you go and check it out. There's so many great videos there that go back generations and generations. You can get all kinds of really cool, fun ideas. Get yourself prepped even for upcoming fall and winter things that we do here at Rogers Gardens. And then if you have a friend who you know has a big old Staghorn Fern and they're trying to figure out what to do with it, make sure you tag them down below so they can see, because it is very easy to do and to remount and to mount all those little individual pups and then give away, and then hopefully maybe they'll give you one as a gift. But yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in. We really, really appreciate it. Make sure you also go and look at our website and subscribe for our email list. There's so many great events coming up. We have new stuff coming up. We have new in-person stuff coming up. So we're actually going to do things with you in person. If you can't make it in person, we're still going to record these. So you still have the luxury of staying home with your coffee and being warm and watching it, the luxury of your own home, or even watching it later in the day if you can't make it that early in the morning. So thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it. If I didn't get to your questions, you have questions later and you're not watching this live, just put those down below and we'll answer those questions for you as well. So stay well, stay safe, and happy gardening, everybody. Bye.